So what is a simple sentence? A simple sentence is just a sentence that contains a subject and a verb. For example, I am a teacher. Here the subject is I and the verb is am. Here's another one. She took a cab to the airport. Can you identify the subject and the verb here? The subject is she and the verb is took. One more example. We're having pizza for dinner tonight. In this sentence, the subject is we and the verb is actually the phrase are having. It has two words. First, the auxiliary or the helping verb are, and then the main verb having. But still, are having is a phrase that acts as a single verb. So in all of these sentences, you see that they have a subject and a verb, so these are simple sentences. Now there's another name for a simple sentence, and that is an independent clause. This means more or less the same thing as a simple sentence, but just remember that it's another name for a simple sentence. So what's a compound sentence then? Well, a compound sentence is just a sentence that has two independent clauses. We saw that a simple sentence has just one clause, but a compound sentence has two or sometimes more independent clauses. Take a look at this example. I am a teacher. My wife is a lawyer. What we have here is two separate independent clauses or simple sentences. And the problem with this is that it sounds choppy and disconnected when we say it like that. I am a teacher. My wife is a lawyer. Instead, we can combine them like this. I am a teacher and my wife is a lawyer. This sounds much better, and now we have one compound sentence with the two independent clauses connected by the conjunction and. Here's another example. She tried to lift the suitcase. The suitcase was too heavy. We can combine these clauses using but. She tried to lift the suitcase, but it was too heavy. Notice that we have the word it in the second part. Now, it is a pronoun that just refers to the suitcase. It makes the sentence sound better by avoiding repetition. Next example. He didn't have enough cash. He paid by credit card. We can connect these clauses using so. He didn't have enough cash, so he paid by credit card. One last example. We can take a bus to the museum. We can just walk there. What we see here is two options, two different ways to get to the museum. We can connect these using or. We can take a bus to the museum, or we can just walk there. Now, the connecting words that you see in these examples, and, but, so, or, etc., these words are called coordinating conjunctions. That's a fancy word, but it just means that these are connecting words that connect two independent clauses. And there's another important point here. You see that in all of the examples, when we connect the two independent clauses, we put a comma after the first clause. Now this is the proper form. You write the first independent clause, then you put a comma after it, and then a conjunction, and then you write the second clause. Remember this rule. Okay, we're going to practice this now. You see 5 items on the screen. In each one, I want you to combine the simple sentences into one compound sentence. Use a coordinating conjunction like and, but, or so to make the compound sentence. Stop the video now, try the exercise, and then play the video again and check. Okay, let's discuss them. Number 1, she dropped her phone on the floor and it broke. Number 2, I'm not very hungry, so I'll just have an orange juice. 3, you should study harder or you'll fail the exam. 4, we'd like to buy a car, but we can't afford one right now. And number 5 is a little tricky because there are 3 simple sentences or 3 independent clauses, but we can connect them using coordinating conjunctions. I told my roommate to turn down the TV, but he didn't, so I got up and left. How many did you get right? Alright, let's now move on and talk about complex sentences. Here's a clause first. When I got home from work yesterday. What do you notice about it? Well, it has a subject, I, and a verb, got, But this clause is just not a complete sentence. And that's because if I say to you, when I got home from work yesterday, you will ask, okay, what happened? What did you do? So you see, this thought is not complete. So this is not an independent clause. This type of clause is called a dependent clause. To make it a complete sentence, you have to add an independent clause. For example, when I got home from work yesterday, I watched TV for an hour. So you see that there is a dependent clause and an independent clause. And now it's a complete sentence. And this type of sentence is called a complex sentence. Here are some more examples. But before I talk about them, in each one, I want you to identify the dependent clause and the independent clause. Stop the video and try the exercise, then play the video again and continue. All right, in number 2, I love to travel is the independent clause, and because I get to meet a lot of interesting people is the dependent clause. Now in sentence number 1, we saw that the dependent clause came first, and here in number 2, the dependent clause comes second. That's okay. In complex sentences, you can put the clauses in any order. That's no problem. All right, number 3, even though the exam was quite difficult is the dependent clause, and all the students passed is the independent clause. In number 4, let me know is independent, and if you need any help is dependent. And finally, in number 5, you can't go out and play is the independent clause, and until you finish your homework is the dependent clause. Just remember that to decide whether a clause is dependent or independent, you ask the question, can this clause be a complete sentence on